Okay, so it's a party.
Yes.
But about TV.
Yes. Join us every Monday for TV Party, where we'll talk about the news of the moment, the best episodes of the week, and what we can't wait to find sitting on our DVRs.
We'll also chat with actors, writers, and experts about TV, elect classic characters to our Hall of Faces, deep dive into full seasons of some great shows, and more.
Find us at Consequence of Sound, iTunes, or wherever you procure fine podcasts.
Oh, Clint, one more thing. Is it open bar?
It's BYO.
Oh, got it.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Go ahead and take a moment right now before we get started. There's probably a subscribe button in front of you. I would love for you to hit that. I'd be so grateful so you can keep up with this series right here. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest, Kay Hanley of the band Letters to Cleo. We're going to be talking about the 25th anniversary of Aurora, Gory, Alice. We're also going to be talking about the Sister compilation that got its release in 1998. She's been working on music for Doc Mcstuffins that we'll get into a little bit, as well as her work with Josie and the Pussycats, the plans for new music eventually from Letters to Cleo. But first, we're going to talk about the Music Modernization Act, which Kay Hanley is very integral in and very passionate about. It's Kyle Meredith with Letters to Cleo.
Hey, Kyle.
I wanted to, I know I'm going to jump in the time machine here in a bit, and I know we got some stuff to talk about in the past, but there was some stuff I thought we'd start out with more in the present, because I've been seeing you tweet a lot about the Music Modernization Act.
Sure.
Which looks like something you're really passionate about, thankfully. I know a lot of our listeners have seen that phrase and probably don't know what's up, and I sort of thought maybe we could start there, and you could talk a little bit about what that is and why it is so meaningful to you.
Right. Well, I am co-executive director of Songwriters of North America. That is, and my writing partner, Michelle Lewis, is the executive director. So we work on this together, too. It's a nonprofit advocacy organization that fights to protect the value of songs across, in the digital marketplace. Because songwriters are particularly uniquely screwed across streaming platforms when it comes to digital royalties. The Music Modernization Act, this is like a consensus bill across that has been agreed upon. It's kind of like a fragile truce between all of the stakeholders in this particular economic. I guess it's kind of like a streaming ecosystem. So the labels, the publishers, the artists, the writers, the internet service providers have all come to this like very fragile consensus that, the ISPs came to it because they wanted to stop getting sued. The songwriters came to it because it migrates a mechanical right from sales to a stream. The labels came to it because, everybody had like a reason to come to it, but they had to give up something to get on board the Music Modernization Act. So we went to Washington, D.C. to lobby for this, I don't know, in March maybe. And we met with, Congress people, senators. And the beautiful thing about this bill is that there's a lot of beautiful things about this bill, but one of the most moving parts to me has been seeing the way Republicans and Democrats have come together unanimously to agree that music is awesome and the people who write it should be protected. And, this bill passed unanimously in the House. And to see like Doug Collins, who is like one of the most conservative members of Congress, and Hakeem Jeffries from New York, who's one of the most liberal, like standing on the floor of crying about how much music has meant to them and has changed their lives in support of this bill was something that you really don't see every day. And especially in our country feels really fucking divided right now. And to know that this kind of bipartisanship is still possible is really moving to me. So fast forward to now, a couple of stragglers have been coming in to try and, like, if we think of this legislation as a three-legged stool between, like, the music creating corporations, the tech corporations, and then the music creators, every time somebody comes in and tries to, like, insert their own self-dealing amendments into this bill, which CSAC did a couple of months ago, and songwriters were able to coalesce, like really come together, form an army, and shoot that out of the sky. And now Sirius XM is coming in and trying to do the same thing, and we're like, fuck no, you are not. So if going back to the three-legged stool metaphor, every time, like a CSAC comes in, or by the way, CSAC did the right thing, and thank you, hats off to them for doing so. So every time someone comes in and like knocks a peg off one of the stool legs, it like risks toppling the entire legislation. So we are not having it. And so this is the first meaningful piece of legislation that music creators have had in over 100 years. Yeah. We need this bill to pass. So that's why I tweet the shit out of it constantly and yell at people who are not on board.
The why do you hate music? I mean, we've seen some of these billboards. Obviously, you've directed at some senators and Congress people, and it's just... It
worked. Senator Wyden from Oregon, he got a couple of billboards put up saying, why do you hate music? And he got on board. Thank you, Senator Wyden, for seeing the light.
Yeah, it's just, it is incredible that of all the people, for the history of the pop industry as we know it, it's been the songwriters, the people who actually created the product, I'll even say, taking the word arts and setting it aside for a second, which, I don't like doing. But in their eyes, the product, the people who actually created it are the ones who get the least. That's mind-blowing. And I know it's always sort of been like that. And so what you all are doing is so very important. And I thank you for doing that as well.
Thank you. Well, thank you for talking about it. It's a really important for music creators.
Well, I didn't want that to get lost within the conversation here because, like I said, I know what you're doing is really important out there. But that aside, there is lots to celebrate with the work that you've made personally, with the art that you've made through these years. Because I was looking at the calendar and I thought, oh, look at that. There's some anniversaries in the Letters to Cleo camp. The big anniversaries. Aurora, Gory, turning 25 this year, and if you want to count it, Sister came out in '98 as well for whatever that little record was. It was officially released. But I thought we would start with Alice, being 25 years, and I don't know. I guess that's probably been on your mind a little bit because all the main three albums, they had their vinyl reissues last year, and then you all played them in full, right?
Yes, we did.
How was that?
It was really fun and interesting. I mean, there are some songs that we did 3 nights at the Paradise in Boston. Each night we did an album from our catalog of 3 albums. So, it was, I mean, there were some songs that we literally never played live and we had to learn those. And so that was interesting.
Right.
and then ones that like we don't normally play. And it was really, there were a lot of, we gained a lot of fans kind of after the band broke up because we did that movie 10 Things I Hate About You, and I did Josie and the Pussycats, and so a lot of fans discovered us through that stuff after we had already broken up and just assumed that they'd never get to see us live. And some fans, like their parents had brought them to shows when they were like little kids. So it was just really, I don't know, it was really cool to like meet all of these people who are just like pumping new life into these songs and just having new fans to connect with was neato.
Alice, Aurora, Gory, hitting 25 years old. If you don't mind walking back to 1993 and taking the deep dive into there and everything that was going on. So, because I know this album also, I guess in a way it celebrates 2 birthdays, 93 and 94, because of the re-release. But, going back and listening to it and the demos that came before that and everything, I mean, the sound became so much more muscular in a very short amount of time from those demos to Alice. Was that the influence of big rock sort of happening, and I'll even say grunge to a point? Was any of that there? I mean, there's anything you can attribute that to?
Absolutely. I mean, we heard Nirvana on the radio and we were like, we are doing that. So, we knew that we had already, because we played live so much, had already kind of like, it was already becoming much more of a rock band. I mean, the demo stuff I'm not sure if you heard the word, kind of like funky, a little tweet, like our earlier stuff. And we had a band called Rebecca Lula before Letters to Cleo, very like, I don't know, like jangly college pop kind of stuff, with like a little ska thrown in there and a little funk thrown in there. And I think that when we, between the time that we wrote the songs for Aurora and started writing the songs for Wholesale, 5 years had gone by, and we had already, not 5 years in terms of like when they came out, but 5 years between like writing one record and writing the next one. We had already like been on the road and like slugging it out in the clubs, and you can't help but like just get more rocking from doing that. So I think the combination of like, the bands around us, like the sounds that we were hearing, like we were getting into like Pavement and Sloan and Sonic Youth and all of these like cool bands from Pacific Northwest and Sub Pop and Merge, and you can't help but just feel like I want to connect, and that just made us feel our sound got more like heavier and more intense and more intentional.
And all that was happening in the Pacific Northwest, but not to take away from what was happening in New England too, because it was pretty damn fertile on its own. With so much coming out at once. Do you see that made it easier to get label attention, or did it make it harder, like for bands trying to get their own attention? I guess that's sort of a competition question.
No, here's my feeling on that. If you were like past your teens and you're still in a band in Boston, you're not trying to become like a pop star or a rock star. It's like, we weren't, and most of our peers were just like, we just wanted to headline Thursday night at TT the Bears. That was like the height of what we thought was possible. I didn't even know that it was possible to like do this for a living. It's just not the world that I grew up in. So to me, being in a band was like a really fun thing to do, to blow off steam after work, waiting tables. So in Boston, there wasn't, there was probably like a healthy competition, but mostly we were just like really supportive of each other. We all knew each other because we were playing on, it was, as you mentioned, it was a pretty large and vibrant scene. And I'm still friends with all those people that I came up with today. A lot of them are still doing music.
A lot of them released albums this year, and that's what also was sort of my... Because I had Kristen Hirsch on the phone the other day, but we were talking about all the other ones too. Like Belly has the new record, and of course Dino Jr. is still out there doing their thing, and Juliana's got new records, and and the Pixies and everybody. It was just nonstop, and everybody's still making the best music of their careers. On top of that, it's incredible.
I like to think so.
Something in the water, as they say. Well, we can't talk about the record, of course, without talking about Here and Now, which, I don't know, that's the life changer, right? That's where things
absolutely
turn off on its own. It's been told before, I'm sure, but what's the story on there, and how does it happen? How does that song happen afterward?
Well, the first version of it was, again, funky, which is so weird. And also, it didn't even get to the chorus until about a minute and a half in. And our producer, Mike Deneen, when we went into the pre-production for the record over at Q Division in Boston, he was just like, okay, that part needs to the fast talking part needs to happen like immediately. And we were like, really? Do you think so? He's like, yeah. And then there was this part at the end of the song that was like this throwaway kind of melody line in the outro of the song that was like, and it didn't even have any words on it or anything. And he was like, and that's a hook, and we need to make that a pre-chorus. So basically, Mike just came in and like helped us rearrange the song and that's how it ended up a hit. Without Mike Deneen in the equation, that song would have gone nowhere. And also, just a shout out to Mike, who died a few months ago of cancer, and he is just so important to the Boston music scene, so important to our career, and we loved him so much, and just miss him a lot.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Thanks. So after the song came out, it became a hit, and we were like, well, in the meantime, we had the reason that we re-recorded it was because we got a deal with Giant Records. So like right after the record was re-released, it was like right away it was like on the radio, on the charts, and we were like, oh, well, that's how it works. You sign to a label and you get a song on the radio, and it just goes from there. And we were like, cool, great. So when we put out the second record and that didn't, all of a sudden it was like, oh no, sorry, we added Alanis Morissette. We can't add any more girls. And we were like, what? And so we didn't know that you're not guaranteed another shot at the charts, And so we had to kind of come up with contingency plans. So we just kept touring. Luckily for us, it was kind of our crazy story is that we made all three of our albums at the same label with the same A&R guy. And I just consider, even though we didn't have another big hit after Here and Now, it was like I had the best fucking time in my 20s. I made records and I toured with like my brothers. It was like around the world playing rock music. It was like crazy. And because of the success of that song, I was able to, we were able to do the things that kind of kept us in the conversation. Like we did a lot of soundtrack stuff, and after the band broke up, I did Josie. And I just kind of was able to keep enough doors open that like I could continue doing what I do. And I still get to do it.
Yeah.
Writing songs is how I keep the lights on, how I pay for college tuition. And
very fortunate for all of those. Yeah, no, because not everybody gets that. You guys played it well. You played it very well, all things considered. And I'll hit on one more. Actually, I'll comment on one song. Hearing Rim Shack now and the epic of that, probably the heaviest of maybe everything on that. I thought, you really do give Maskus and the gang a really good run for their money on that sound, on that one.
Yay.
But on the flip side of that, Melly's Coming Over, that's such a fun song. And I, to me, it almost seems like that's potentially even the jumping off point that leads into Wholesale Meats and Fish, that little song right there.
Sure. That's a very good observation. And you've got the timeline just right.
Oh, really?
That was like one of the last songs written for Aurora. And that was I think maybe the only song that I wrote all by myself for that record. And that was right around the time that we started writing stuff for Wholesale. So that was very astute observation.
Thank you very much. I like to do my research.
You're welcome.
Gotta pay me for something over here. Well, so skipping into the other big round number of 1998, you guys do release Sister, which is, I don't know, it's not really an album, would you say? It's a collection. It's got the demos. It's got the covers. How do you see that record?
I think it's the Sister tape, which was a tape that we put out. That was like pretty much the end of Rebecca Lula, the first thing that we released as Letters to Cleo. I don't even know if many of those were Cleo songs, to be honest. Some of them are. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm the worst.
No, it's okay. I mean, because
that was kind of like Greg. I think that was kind of like Greg's baby.
Because that's what I remember reading about it was a lot of the earlier songs before the Aurora record and everything, and then there was some covers in there. I didn't know if that was from the same thing because you also get You Dirty Rat and Secret Agent and Dreams.
Right. Okay, so there. it's rarities and B-sides.
Yeah.
And I think that we put out another one after that called When Did We Do That? And that was and B-sides.
Yeah, exactly 10 years after that. That's when those two records happened. Sister, and then When Did We Do That? 98, 2008. Right. By chance, I'm sure. I don't know. And I'm guessing, when those compilations come around, I don't know what was going on in 98 for you all. It does seem like that might have been the regrouping year with member changes and I think that was when you all left the label, kind of the last restructure, I guess.
I think so. We made man, you and your timelines. You have got me completely stumped. I don't know. I think 90, we brought in Tom because Stacy, our drummer, left to join Veruca Salt. So we made our last album, Go, with Tom Polchi. And that was an amazing experience, making that record. I think Go came out in 97 or 98.
Yeah, it came out in 97.
And then
the
98,
trio
we
completion.
were just like touring, and then Michael and I had gotten married, and then in 98 I got pregnant with our first child, and then that was it. It was like I was done with being the singer of a rock band. I very much wanted to move on, and actually that was right around the time we did start moving on. The whole band got hired to do an animated series for the WB channel called Generation O, which was about this 8-year-old rock star named Molly O. And it was so much fun. And it was like such a great way I think that was one of the sort of like bridge jobs that showed me, like gave me kind of a roadmap to the future. Because strangely enough, that's what I do now. I write music for cartoons all day, every day.
What have you been, or if you could tell me, I guess, what have you been writing for?
I write music for, Michelle and I compose all the music for a series called Doc Mcstuffins on Disney Junior. We do music for Vampirina. So we do a lot of work, write a lot of songs for animated shows on Disney, DreamWorks, where we just started work on DC Superhero Girls, which will come out next year on Cartoon Network. So yeah, that's my job. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's so cool. I know some people, that kind of have that side of things and whatnot. And, I don't know. It seems like it would be really fun. It seems like it would still be very hard work to kind of write in that section.
Yeah, but it's perfect for me. This is exactly what I'm supposed to be. This is what all those years of like being in a band was leading to. So like this is exactly.
Now, do you ever try to
job for me.
Yeah, to kind of marry those two together? Do you take these songs out and play them live at all?
No.
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 Just for the small screen.
Yep.
Yeah. But in the meantime, Letters to Cleo have been back out there with those shows and everything, and the 2016 reunion EP was great with Back to Nebraska. What's next? Is there a next step for the band? I know you have some one-off shows here and there, but what comes next musically?
I don't really know. We're talking right now about maybe making a full-length album, but getting us all together to do that is really hard because we're all kind of busy with our own careers and, kids and just a lot of busy stuff going on. So it's really hard to lock down a time and say we're doing this. So the dream is that we'll really focus in on some times that we can get together and put out a record next year. But if not, we'll just do our November. We're kind of like circling around November as a great time for us to play rock shows, and hopefully we'll release some new material to support those. But if we don't, then we still have 100 songs that people want to sing along to, and we love hosting sing-alongs.
No one's going to complain about that part right there. I promise you.
Nope.
Well, Kay, it's been really fun talking. Thanks for letting me geek out at least, and taking the time travel with me. And again, a big thanks for everything you're doing out there with the Music Modernization Act as well.
Thank you so much, Kyle. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
All right, we'll see you around.
Yes, you will.
All right, take care.
Bye.
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 Big thanks to Kay Hanley of Letters to Cleo. Happy anniversary, 25th anniversary to Aurora, Gory, Alice. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Keep up with the series right here, whether you're listening on YouTube or the podcast version on iTunes or Podchaser, wherever you're getting it from. Subscribe, give us a rating, leave a review as well. After that, you can head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern, where you'll also find some bonus episodes of this series. I'm Kyle Meredith, and I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.